I speak to a lot of people who are really quite considerate of others, and they tend to put others' needs first. Or, for example, if they're leaving a job, they will make it very hard for themselves because they need to. They feel guilty about leaving, and this sense of maybe leaving others in the lurch, when in fact they've got constraints because they need to take up a new job. But people do this in relationships, and they do it just in their interpersonal lives. Being very conscientious and putting others first, but that creating all sorts of problems for them. And so people often realise, well, maybe I need to put myself first a bit more. And that can be a challenge, and it can be hard to disentangle that from selfishness. Am I just being selfish? Well, it can be hard also not to feel like that's the only other option, and so I go, well, stuff it. I'm just going to look after me, because you get so frustrated. And actually that's what I want to touch on here. This is a complicated issue, so I'm only talking about a slither of this whole issue. And that is that I think we actually in some ways serve others better through enlightened selfishness. Now I'm using that word loosely because it has, people develop theories around that have specific meanings, and I'm not using it in any particular sense like that. I'm using the word loosely to say that there's actually a good way of taking care of yourself. And here are some considerations for that, which I'm bringing off the top of my head. But one is that you have a moral responsibility to yourself, if you want to think about it in those terms. You have a moral obligation to take care of yourself because nobody else is really going to do it. Not like you are. Other people care about you and will to some degree, family and friends. But that's secondary and tertiary levels of caring about you and putting you first. Only you can really put yourself first, and you don't really own yourself in the way that we tend to imagine. You're more like a gift to yourself. You're more like this thing you've discovered and encountered. And so you have a moral obligation to make your life go well, not to let it be used and abused, not to discard it or fail to attend to it and fail to make it work properly. You have a moral obligation for your life. You're responsible for your life. So that's important. Another aspect, I guess, stepping on to something else, is that when I'm saying that a kind of enlightened selfishness makes us better people to be around, better people for others, it's because when we sacrifice ourselves out of this feeling of guilt or feeling bad in some way or another, we start to build up a kind of, various negative emotions. One of them is resentment. We can get resentful. Now, not everybody who sacrifices themselves like that becomes resentful, but it's actually probably quite common. Maybe 65% of people, or 75% of people do become resentful. The others who don't certainly become stressed, or they don't assert what they really need. So in either case, other people don't know where they stand. They want to be helpful in turn, but they don't really know where this person stands. So it makes it harder for them to do good for you. But if you do become resentful, then also that obviously is just a bad mode of being, and that's not good for you, and it's not good for other people in all sorts of ways. You start to resent them for your neurotic need to do right by them. That's not good, obviously, and we can fill in the blanks about what the outcomes of that are. So I just, over time of being a counsellor and doing this work, over time it's become clearer and clearer that if we can just have a kind of good-hearted self-interest where I attend to my own being and I fully express my own being and I assert my desires and I act on them and I do what's best for me without disregarding others, without disregarding decency, but knowing that I've got to focus on doing what works for me. I stick by my obligations, I stick by my word, unless it becomes untenable to stick by it. But I'm reliable, I'm trustworthy, but I still, with a kind of frank honesty, do what I need to do for myself and assert what I need for myself. If we do that, then we're each a healthier kind of person, which means we're a healthier kind of person to be around. We're more integrated and satisfied and free, which means we're more integrated, satisfied, free people to be around. That's better. That's a better kind of person to be around. And when everybody else around us is like that, that helps us to be like that. Like, there are all sorts of ways in which this actually works better. So getting used to really just asserting your own desires, valuing your own desires, taking up your space in the world, and expressing and acting on your desires in the world, taking care of yourself, first of all, in this ethical way, where you're well aware that everybody else exists and that you have obligations, but you're also aware of your obligation to yourself.